Singapore has a skilled worker gap. Remarkably, the recognition that there could be such skilled worker shortages is not new. As far back as the 1980s, observers noted that demographic changes could threaten the viability of economic progress on our island if human resource needs remain unmet. Yet today, we still see reports attesting that as many as 4 in 5 companies face workforce talent shortages. This has, we are told, necessitated the continued stream of foreign migrant professionals. At the same time, many in this House face a seasonal pattern of appeals after exam results are announced. Young residents, as well as their parents, often come to our Meet the People sessions in a desperate effort to appeal for entry for their children into a given tertiary institution or program of study. Often, these appellants actually possess the necessary scores required for entry. However, the limited number of spaces often mean that these local kids are unable to secure a spot, as spaces are filled by those who obtain grades better than their own. These two problems, while seemingly unrelated, are actually not. Essentially, almost a half-century after the matter of a potential skills shortage was first identified, our local schools seem still unable to fill the nation's tech worker shortfall, despite possessing secondary school students that are sufficiently talented and willing to pursue technically oriented tertiary education. One strategy we can consider is to alter the criteria for entry into certain autonomous universities, such as the SUSS, SIT, and SUTD, such that they can take in students so long as they meet absolute entry criteria, rather than relative to all applicants for a particular program. The proposal is not as pie in the sky as one might imagine. Similar approach to tertiary education is used in other places, such as France, Germany, and the state of California in the United States. In France, while entry into the private Grande École system, and full disclosure, I teach at one such school, is indeed competitive and dependent on relative scores acquired in a national level exam known as the concours. Admission into the public university system is actually generally open to all who have passed the baccalaureate, which is the equivalent of our local A-level. German universities also are more forgiving with entrance criteria, with certain programs even practicing free admission. Essentially, all applicants that fulfill basic university and entrance qualifications are let in. Standards are maintained by introducing tougher courses in the earlier stages and having students voluntarily drop out. And in STEM subjects, this could be as high as 9 out of 10 students. And while the prestigious University of California system only guarantees a spot to high school graduates that fall within the top 9% of the state's high school cohort, admission into the next tier, what's known as the California State University system, is actually much more liberal. And low-income residents who are first-generation, underrepresented college students may even be assured entry into certain majors, subject to a commitment by the student that they complete their studies within 4 years. One instinctive argument against this proposal is that grades serve as a filter for whether the potential student is likely to make it into the desired course of study. But this is precisely why the proposal will retain minimum criteria for entry into programs to ensure that those who embark on a certain course of study have a realistic chance of completion. The key difference is that students that would otherwise meet this threshold do not get rejected simply because of their relative underperformance. Another objection is that the system may be brutal, and if students were to drop out, they could incur a debt burden with no degree to show for it. Relatedly, this also means that, at least in the earlier years, the system will require more funding to cater to a larger matriculating cohort. But this is precisely what the threshold criteria are for. Those should be chosen to ensure that any student that meets the minimum requirements should be able to successfully complete the course of study. And perhaps more importantly, if you believe, as I do, that any Singaporean who qualifies for a local university should have the opportunity to pursue a degree, then we should not shy away from expanding the system and set aside the resources necessary to ensure that this is so. In the long run, this could even pay off economically, since employers would be able to hire workers that they need, while reducing the cost of searching for talent from abroad. A third concern is that this liberal approach may end up churning out too many graduates. But in reality, there's a shortage of certain skilled professionals, especially in tech, and companies often weight skills over degrees. Yet experts say that skills learned in our tertiary institutions don't necessarily align well with their needs on the job. Relevant skills are instead acquired with certification exams. But the prerequisites or eligibility criteria for many of these certificates are actually incredibly accessible, often requiring only O or N-level credits, and are not accompanied by a need for stellar grades. What we need to ensure, therefore, is a better alignment of training and the graduates that we churn out. Loosening the criteria for entry while simultaneously tightening the conditions for graduation will help keep our tertiary offerings nimble, since we need to worry less about how failing out already small intakes could preemptively decimate programs. One may finally argue that removing the competitive entry could weaken the quality of our lauded universities, such as NUS and NTU. As suggested earlier, more flexible entry requirements do not appear to have undermined the STEM standing of the best French, German, and Californian universities. And in any case, the suggestion is limited to the applied tier of our AUs, those that were less oriented toward academic accomplishment and research output to begin with.